What are the most common complaints that you're hearing from the women that you coach about the men that they're dating? What are the issues that they're coming up against most frequently?
I suppose they're not ready. They don't want to commit. I want something meaningful. I want something that's actually going to go somewhere, and this person is just kind of stringing me along, or they can't seem to... a lot of people wouldn't frame it like this person's stringing me along, because that's a hard thing to admit. But they may say, this person keeps saying they're not ready and they're just not quite there yet and they're not sure. And so I think the indecisiveness of men and the inability to actually commit that's got to be the top one, I would say.
Well, that would run counter a little bit to a lot of what you hear about on the internet, which would be that most men are struggling to find a date, that they can't get attention from women, that women are actually looking for attention from the top man as much as possible. And in my experience, this, I've stood on the front door of 1,000 events and met 1 million people across my entire life. 18 to 21-year-old guys and girls aren't exactly known for their maturity, especially not in the UK, especially not when they're drunk. Mm-hmm. And yet, in my experience, most of the girls, even at that age, were looking for, maybe it wasn't a particularly mature form of commitment, but they were looking for commitment. They're looking for a guy that they could hold hands with and go away to a little summer vacation with and do Christmas markets in December. It seems to me that a lot of the concerns that guys have around what women want and the issues that they're facing don't seem to match up massively.
What are the concerns that guys have?
I think that the big ones are that they're not going to be found attractive, that they're going to be seen as creepy if they approach them, that if they try to do online dating, that they're not going to be responded to, if they try to approach them in the real world, that they're going to be seen as some Me Too predator, that she is going to trade up because there is an endless hierarchy of guys that could fly her out to Dubai. There's some sheikh on the other side of Instagram that's going to DM her and put her on a 5-star flight to take her out to Dubai. And, this is the world that we live in now, that girls have more opportunities than ever before because it's been afforded by social media, which means that the top few guys are going to eat and everybody else is going to starve.
I sympathize with guys on all of those things. I feel it touches me when you say it. Because I think that it's a really hard thing for anyone to feel invisible. And what's more, to feel like even if I'm briefly visible, I will become invisible again the moment this person comes across someone with more. And when I hear that, I come to two immediate conclusions. One is, choose well. Choose someone as a man who truly is, one of the phrases Audrey used all the time when we were dating and getting to know each other, she kept saying as a philosophy for her life, I just believe in chasing the right things. That you will always be kind of, not punished, but life will always give you its comeuppance if you chase the wrong things. And you'll always have to end up at some point circling back to the right thing. It's just when you just decide to do it. And I've come to look at that as one of my key mantras for life. I look at all the time, am I chasing the right thing or the wrong thing here? And I think that a lot of guys are struggling because they're chasing the wrong thing. They themselves, there is an entitlement among a lot of guys that I should have this. And the funny thing about dating is that we end up accusing each other of exactly the thing that we're doing. And we really hate the other side for doing it. But it is exactly what we're doing. It's one community saying it's disgraceful how shallow they are, that I have to be a certain height for them to even pay attention to me. And meanwhile, they're going, why don't I have the top 1% of women? And you're going, What are you talking about? You just did exactly the same thing. You just said there was a top 1% and you're not interested in the rest. That there is a hypocrisy on both sides. There is a hypocrisy there that I really struggle with. And I think the more we can get to a point where we go, what are the countercultural compromises that I am willing to make in order to actually live a happy life? Not a life that everyone else says is so impressive. Not a life where I finally go, look, I made it. I'm dating the cheerleader. A life that's actually making you happy because you've selected for the right things. What countercultural compromises will you have to make for that? We talked earlier about, because I know for me, I'm all about looking at that on both sides. We talked earlier about women who might say, well, I want to date someone who's at my level. And I want to go, well, let's redefine what you class as your level. Do you mean your level for kindness? Your level for generosity? Your level for empathy? Your level for being loyal? Or do you mean your level of income? Because the things I said first will make you far happier. This thing doesn't really matter, but you've told yourself it matters. Now, could you make a compromise that goes against the grain? Because that is what, if we go online and we look at all of these communities, is everyone arguing to me, that's from the outside, because I'm not deep in these things, but it's like I hear secondhand all the time. So you can always correct me if I'm getting it wrong on what people are saying out there. But when I look at it, I feel like so much debate is being had at the macro level of here's how men are, here's how women are, and here are all the things we can't stand about the cultural norm right now. And when I look at that, I'm like, this feels to me like if it was the business equivalent, it's like, I want to start a sandwich shop. And I spend all my time watching the news and the economy and the macro statistics and saying, this is why I shouldn't start a sandwich shop. This is why you can't start a sandwich shop today. Look at it. I'm watching the news all day and it's terrible. The banking system's going to collapse soon. You know that, right? No point starting a sandwich shop now. Or constantly arguing about politics and who's in government. Oh, it's the Democrat. Oh, it's not business friendly. Oh, you don't want to be in California. It's not business friendly. I'm not going to start a business in California. Like there's that mindset. And I have always, one of the reasons that I've always loved studying things from a place of curiosity, and that's what you do. You're a curious person who's fascinated by how things work and why things are happening. So I get that part I understand. But when people are complaining constantly about the macro of it all, and that becomes their excuse, I always just think, do you realize that your life changes by what you do in the micro? If you're a woman and you're saying, men are always intimidated by me, I say, in the macro, you're 100% right. That there is an awful lot of men. If you're a high earner, if you're high status, if you've done a lot in your life, there's going to be a lot of men who are intimidated by you. That's 100% true. So I would never want to invalidate that. But on the micro, if you're telling me that men are always intimidated by you, something's going wrong.
Well, who's the common denominator between all of these men?
Right. Now, you could say men are the gender is the common denominator, is men. Men have a problem with this. None of my female friends have a problem with this. Men have a problem with this. But I look at that and I go, there is a way to either you're going for a certain kind of guy all the time, or you're going in with that as your kind of power and that as your value, and that's the thing you talk about all the time. No one wants to go out with a rich person who talks about how much money they have. No one. No one wants to go out with a celebrity who talks about how famous they are. You want to go out with someone who has a conversation with you and gets to know you and is interested in you and is impressed by you. Right? That's one of the most attractive things in the world is you go on people should go on a date asking themselves, how could I be impressed by this person? And if you do that, and there was a writer friend of mine who used to write, I think he wrote for the Hollywood Reporter or someone, but he used to say when he would interview celebrities, the goal for himself so that he could write a good piece was always to go, because he didn't care. He'd been doing it so long. It was, for him, it was like just another person coming through the door with a movie. It's long past the point of having any novelty for him. But he would say, by the end of this interview, could I get to a place of feeling grateful for having been here? And he knew that the key to accessing that gratitude was feeling like by the end of the time with that person, they had taught him something. They had given him some kind of life perspective or told him their story in a way that made him feel like, wow, I'm actually really grateful I got to sit with this person. He said, if I could achieve that gratitude, I knew that the article I would write would convey that. I knew it would be a good piece. I think that we could approach dating that way. But so many people go on a date and it's like, here's what's impressive about me. Here's why you should feel a little intimidated by me. Instead of going, how can I show I'm impressed by you? Or how can I show that there's something about you that just, wow, that's really interesting. Or that I have a unique understanding of you by the end of the date. That's super attractive. It makes someone feel seen. Go back to our example. If you're someone who, let's say it's real, you have a job that intimidates people. You also have immense leverage in being able to reverse that by the way that you are on a date with someone. And so that to me is always, for me, on the front lines of dating, where I'm constantly helping people to actually go out there and find love. I always want to say to them, forget the news. Look at what are the things you could do to transform your dating life. And it's wild how much you can do to transform your dating life. And it doesn't matter what's going on out there. There's a phrase that a doctor friend of mine used when it came to diseases in hospitals. He said, statistics don't matter to the individual. If you get a 1 in 1,000 disease, it doesn't matter to you that it's 1 in 1,000. You have the disease. But I actually, from a dating perspective, like to put a positive spin on that. That regardless of how grim things seem out there, the statistic doesn't matter to the individual. If you as an individual learn how to be more proactive in your love life, you learn how to be a beautiful presence on a date, you learn how to attract someone, those statistics are not going to be the primary thing affecting your love life.